Tamira knelt on the bank of the stream. It was an exceptionally hot afternoon in the glade, and the sun was beating down on her mercilessly as she did her training. For a druid of the Green Lady, training involves mastering her manipulation of the elements. She was particularly fond of manipulating the surge of water, but right now she is too exhausted to conjure the stream's water to her. She cupped her hands into a bowl and splashed the clear water onto her sweat-soaked face. Running downstream from the frozen sea in the north, the water was refreshingly cold and immediately made her feel better. She took another scoop of water and took huge gulps to quench her parched throat. With her thirst sated, Tamira took a moment to appreciate the beauty surrounding her. The glistening of the water as the sun's rays reflected off of it, as if the water were liquid diamonds. The smell of fresh grass and stream water, and the sound of the running stream and the chirps of birds and insects were music to a druid's ears. It was the first time Tamira appreciated her environment in a long while. So much had happened recently that her time training with the Green Lady in the forest of Galahir just a few weeks ago already felt like a distant memory. Back then, the swelling of the abyss thrusted new initiates like Tamira into the ranks of battle. She was tasked to aid a contingent of the Brotherhood who got separated from their main force during their exodus from their homeland. The contingent has traveled up to the northeast of the forest of Galahir, but with their caravans of supplies, as well as the young and elderly with them, they could not outpace the foul abyssal spawns chasing them. They made their last stand on a knoll, where a lone, giant cherry blossom tree stood in full bloom, raining petals of pink tears that would mark the end of their lives. As the members of the Brotherhood prayed to Valendor for salvation, some were so desperate to even turn to the cherry blossom tree for a miracle, as it looked like a symbol of beauty and hope amid their dire situation. It was at this moment that Tamira arrived on her Pegasus White Wing, along with the Green Lady's two personal guards, or pets depending on how you look at it, Brownfang and Redrum. These two majestic and ferocious flying beasts of nature were able to rip through swaths of abyssal troops with ease. Tamira also conjured water elementals to her aid, and in the heat of the moment, she has shaped them in the form of the Brotherhood warhorses, as she thought that it would be a welcome sight to the weary Brotherhood survivors. With her force coming in to flank the abyssal hunting party, they managed to turn the tide of battle and emerge victorious. Tamira turned her gaze back to the stream and looked at her own reflection in the water, her hand subconsciously toying with the seams of her cloak, her pink cloak. After the victory, the Brotherhood survivors pledged themselves to the service of the Green Lady, and Tamira was appointed to lead them to rebuild their home on the very land that they made their last stand. A catchy name, the Cherry Blossom Coalition, began to spread throughout the people, and Tamira made it official. The cherry blossom flower became the insignia of this new people, and pink pigment was extracted from the cherry blossoms to make pink fabric for their cloaks and their flags. The members of the Cherry Blossom Coalition started building houses and sowing seeds for crops. A village was born, Blossom Glade, built by a determined people granted a second chance to live, with the fateful cherry blossom tree at the center of it. As Tamira mused at the cherry blossom tree towering over the houses of the village a few miles from her, a creature sweeping past her overhead startled her out of her respite. She instinctively grabbed her wand and raided herself. It was not an enemy, however, but a knight of the Order of the Forsaken atop his Pegasus.
"My lady Tamira!"
he exclaimed as his mount landed on the glade with effortless grace.
our patrols has detected a battalion of Twilight kin appearing in the east. They seem to have torn through the dimensions of nightmares and are marching towards the forest of Galahir. But with their current trajectory, they will arrive at Blossom Glade in 2 hours.
Tamira shuddered.
Not now.
She thought.
The people of Blossom Glade are still rebuilding their homes. We barely have enough forces to defend ourselves.
Brownfang and Redrum has long since returned to the Green Lady's service, and there is no time to get help from the forest of Galahir. She steeled her nerves, as she couldn't show any weakness or falter now. The people of Blossom Glade depended on her.
The Cherry Blossom Coalition shall not fall.
She thought to herself.
Gather the men. All able fighters will go to arms, and inform Grendor to get the Order of Redemption ready. We have trained for this combat. Let the Brotherhood ride into battle, under the banner of the Green Lady, the banner of the Cherry Blossom Coalition.
Tamira whistled for Whitewing, her Pegasus, to come.
We will fight at Settler's Pass. That will be a choke point where our numbers will be less of a disadvantage.
They need all the advantage they could get if they hope to win a battle against a battalion. Tamira was thinking of more battle strategies she could employ when she heard the thundering of hoofs coming from the forest of Galahir behind her. She turned around with a smile as she recognized the sound of those hoofs.
Bless the Green Lady! She must have sensed the enemy too. She has sent a unicorn to aid us. Elizabeth is coming.
A unicorn?
The Order of the Forsaken Knight exclaimed.
I've never seen one before. I've heard tales about them. Magnificent creatures with a powerful frame and a magical horn.
It's not what you'd expect.
Tamira warned, knowing what the tales portray unicorns to look like.
Ooh, Elizabeth.
Tamira reached her hand out to pet the unicorn as it stopped in front of her. Elizabeth grunted in response and looked up towards the sky. Tamira looked up as well and was welcomed by the loud beating of wings and the sight of Brownfang and Redrum.
Looks like there's hope after all. Come on, let's go.
Tamira mounted onto Whitewing as it arrived. The knight also mounted on his Pegasus and they took off. While flying towards Blossom Glade, Tamira took out the war horn from her satchel and let loose the cry of battle. To stop the Twilight kin, Tamira has to dominate Settler's Pass. She led the men-at-arms to hold the center line, summoning her water elementals to aid them. Brownfang, along with Grendor and his Order of Redemption, will be holding the right flank, only charging if there is a good opportunity. And the bulk of the Cherry Blossom Coalition is on the left flank, with Redrum, Whitewing, Elizabeth, the Order of the Forsaken, and the Order of the Brotherhood. Their strategy is to break that flank and sweep inwards, taking that central wall to successfully defend Settler's Pass. Facing off against the Cherry Blossom's attack party is the enemy Soulbane, Abyssal Horsemen, Shadowhounds, and the Titanic Shadowhawk. The opponent's forces are heavily deployed in the middle, with two hordes of twisted muscles, the Nightmarish Butchers, the pair of Elven Impalers supported by the Summoner Crone, and over on the right, a pack of Shadowhounds with the Abyssal Horsemen.
Steady, man. We just need to hold them long enough till our flanking party arrives.
The Twilight kin has the initiative and opted to move out first. The Twilight kin marched forwards, Shadowhounds leading the way on both flanks. the Soulbane staying back behind the hill. It is now the Cherry Blossom's turn to respond.
We must not charge those Shadow Hounds, or we will be flanked by Impalers and Abyssal Horsemen. Brownfang, let's fall back. If the Shadow Hounds charge, he will only be able to reach me. Tamira will send a regiment of Water Elementals. They outtread the Impalers and will be able to tie them up next round.
Tamira and the men-at-arms moved up slightly, staying away from those butchers. Her horde of Water Elementals stepped into the forest to be able to see and outtread the Shadowhawk. The Brotherhood Knights charged the Shadowhounds on the left. They will be able to reform out of the Shadowhawk's sight if they rout the hounds. Whitewing went in to distract the Abyssal Horsemen. He will not be able to block them off from the Brotherhood Knights, but he could hopefully stop their thunderous charge. Elizabeth, Redrum and the Forsaken Knights hold back for a follow-up charge. Elizabeth's horns sparkled with magic energies as a bolt of lightning cracked from the horn, singeing the Shadowhawk. Whitewing managed to scratch the horsemen, stopping them from thundering down the battlefield next round. The Brotherhood Knights slay the Shadowhounds, sending them back to the nightmarish realm they came from. Now, the Twilight Kin's second turn. Disordered by Whitewing, the Abyssal Horsemen could still withdraw from the Pegasus and charge the Brotherhood Knights. The Soulbane blazes up the hill into Whitewing, sword drawn and hungry for blood. The Shadowhawk backs away from the Water Elementals. In the center field, the Butchers and Impalers trundle forwards. The leftmost Butcher horde threatening the Water Elemental horde in the flank. On the right flank, the Shadowhounds and Abyssal Horsemen move up onto the hill, with the Shadowhounds protecting the front of the Abyssal Horsemen. The Soulbane routs Whitewing and regroups forwards, protecting the flank of the Abyssal Horsemen from the Brotherhood Knights. The Abyssal Horsemen dealt moderate wounds to the Brotherhood Knights, but the sight of them atop their fiendish mounts and the Soulbane's dread was enough to waver the courageous knights. How will the Cherry Blossom Coalition fare in the bottom of the second round? The headstrong Brotherhood Knights shake off their fear. Unable to charge the horsemen in the flank, they opted to countercharge from the front. Descending from the sky, Redrum dove into the flank of the Abyssal Horsemen. The Knights of the Forsaken clashed with the Soulbane. Elizabeth rams into the Shadowhawk, wounding it and will not yield to it. Heavily wounded, the Soulbane wavers. The Abyssal Horsemen rout under the combined assault. In the center, the Water Elemental horde reforms and turn to face the Butchers. The men-at-arms fall back to buy more time, and Tamira stood guard by the watchtower. On the right flank, the Water Elemental regiment ties up the Impalers. With that accomplished, Grandor and the Order of Redemption charges into the Shadowhounds, as Brownfang positions to flank the Abyssal Horsemen. It is now the Twilight Kin's third turn. The Abyssal Horsemen charges Grandor and the Redemption Knights, but they did not get to charge downhill. As they met on the top of the hill, Grandor and his men took heavy damage as expected, and their faith wavered. The Impalers next to them damaged the Water Elemental regiment with the help of the Crone draining their life force. The Butchers and the other unit of Impalers breached the wall, with one of them facing the Water Elemental horde. The Shadowhawk disengaged from Elizabeth and charged the Brotherhood Knights. This maneuver, however, left him with very little attacks, but it still left the Brotherhood Knights wavered. The wavering Soulbane retreated to the side of the Shadowhawk, hoping to protect its flank in case he miraculously held or if the opponent did not have enough overrunning momentum. The Cherry Blossom Coalition, bottom of 3. The Knights of the Brotherhood found their courage again, and they countercharged the Shadowhawk, with Elizabeth helping by the side. Redrum smashed into the Soulbane, hoping to dispatch him quickly and overrun into the flank of the Shadowhawk. Things happened as planned, and the combined effort took down the ferocious Shadowhawk. The Forsaken Knights flew over this combat to prepare itself for the next round, as Tamira and her men couldn't hold on much longer. Unable to back up any further, the men-at-arms and the water elemental horde charged into the butchers on the left. The men-at-arms were hindered, but this angle of engagement meant that they would not be charged in the flank next round. Tamira chanted some words of power and channeled magical energies into the water elemental horde, giving them strength to crush their enemies. The combined attack dealt moderate damage, but the butchers know no fear. On the right, stubborn old Grandor regained his composure and led the Redemption Knights to countercharge the Abyssal Horsemen, with Brown Fang swooping in and tearing at their flanks. The counter-maneuver decimated the Abyssal Horsemen. The Water Elemental Regiment continued its assault on the Impalers, but the Impalers, no longer surprised, held their ground. The Twilight Kin lost both their sides, but will they break through the middle in this turn 4? The 1st Impaler Regiment finally breaks through the Water Elemental Regiment, while the 2nd unit of Impalers triple charges the men-at-arms with the butchers.
Hold the line!
But faced with overwhelming odds, the men-at-arms routes and flees from the battlefield. Thankfully, on the Cherry Blossom Coalition's turn, reinforcements have arrived for Tamira. The Forsaken Knight strides into combat with the butchers, while the Water Elementals engage them from the front. Grandor and the Order of Redemption charges the nearest Impalers, routing them, while Brown Fang charges the other unit, wounding them and holding them in place. Trusting its tough hide to save it, Elizabeth rams into the central unit of butchers. The Twilight Kin's counterattack could not remove Elizabeth or Brown Fang, and the Cherry Blossom Coalition were able to wipe out the remnants of evil and hold Secular's Pass. The Cherry Blossom Coalition survived its first test. But how many more will be waiting for them? The swelling of the abyss has just begun, and war will engulf Penator. Will it engulf Blossom Glade too? Will the Cherry Blossom Coalition still be standing when all this is over? Tamira could not help but feel a sense of doom in the pit of her belly. Evening has arrived, and the sun has begun to set, casting a golden glow all over the grassland. This natural beauty must not be tainted. Tamira sat down in the glade and marveled at the magnificent sunset, reminding herself of what she fights for.
Hi guys, I'm Paige and this is my channel Newbie Dice, and that's it guys, my first narrative battle report, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And I would like to say as much as I enjoyed making it, this idea manifested in my brain for a while and I finally decided to pull the trigger and make this video, but it took way longer than I expected, and towards the end of it I was getting quite fatigued with making this video already. I'm not a great storyteller or writer, and so the story I just came up with it myself on the spot, just a story to fit my army that I've built. And also, yeah, I voiced all the characters, even the female one. I kind of took a long time looking around for voice changes for something that could at least be a decent female, alright? And even if you didn't like it, this is the best that I can come up with. So if you like it, do drop this video a like and subscribe to my channel to give me some encouragement to know that there are people out there who likes this video, this style of videos, and I'll be thinking of producing more of it. But this videos really take a long time to produce, so I think it will come at a much slower rate. So tell me what you think guys. Thank you.